Let's look at pension reforms in Nigeria. Oh, take us through that journey, for us to understand what the pension used to be and the reforms that have taken place over the years, and what is the idea now, or what is obtainable now when it comes to pension reforms in Nigeria.
All right, thank you very much indeed. I think the reform date back to 2004 under the Obasanjo administration. The Pension Act, the first one came in 2004, called the Pension Act 2004, essentially about contributory pension, where employer and employees has some percentage contribution. But currently, the ratio of contribution has improved from 2004 through to 2014, and there's a new amendment in 2022. So employers are expected to contribute a minimum threshold of 10%, while the employee is expected to contribute about 8% minimum. So that means the law has put a minimum threshold, so it can be better. But the law, you can go beyond as an employer 10%, then the employee less than 8%. So that again has really helped, because the law itself equally gives some leeway for employees to have, to a very large extent, a control of their savings account. They have the right to choose whoever manages their pension. So in a nutshell, this reform has been most beneficial to employees. If you look at what happened before 2004, you had a various chaotic regime. Nevertheless, there are challenges in terms of employers able to stay on course in terms of remitting the contributions to the savings or pension administrators.
All right, for the contributions made by both the employers and the employees over time, it doesn't, the way the scheme is designed, the pension scheme, you who is contributing, or for you who the money is being saved, you cannot have access to the money until a particular time, or you're allowed to have only 25% of the money. Do you think that's the way it should be? If money is being saved for me, or I'm contributing towards savings, shouldn't I be allowed to have access to it when I need it?
The framers of the law envisage that this money you are contributing is essentially meant for your retirement. Therefore, you have access to the fund based on what is in the Pension Act. Once you are 50, you have an access. If you have what you call voluntary retirement, then at that point in time, maybe within 4 months after that, you can have 25% of that contribution. Then the remaining will be program, what you call program pension, based on the calculation, based on your age. So I think the intention of the framer of that law is that when you have retired, you have some money that you can spend in retirement. So it's not in an open capacity where you just have access. So the law finds a way to protect you when you retire, particularly from the age of 50.
All right. According to statistics released by the Nigerian Pension Commission, about 24,000, less than 24,000 employers have gotten, insurance and pension, for their workers. What's your reaction to this level of compliance? And do you think we can still do more with this figure?
When you look at compliance, I think we're way very low in terms of compliance. Even some employers do not even remit the contributed money sometime. And when people leave those jobs, the Pension Commission is inundated with a lot of petition for employers who refuse to remit such monies. But I think with more education, a lot of people are coming into the contributory pension scheme. And I do hope with the level of education, there will be improvement in the way people respond in terms of what they can put aside when they retire from active service.
All right, again, let's look at the design or the structure of the pension scheme. Now, money is being put together for the workers so that by the time they retire, they can get, they have something to fall back on. But we realize that with inflation and how time changes, just putting money away is not really a very smart kind of investment or smart thing to do, because whatever you put together at the time they retire may not be so significant to give them a head start in life. Is there a way to revamp or restructure it in a way that is not just savings, it is also investments?
I disagree with you to some extent. Inflation is there, there's no doubt about that, but the money that is put into the savings, they are custodians of people who invest those money on behalf of those contributions that has been made. And over time, you have return on investment, which on an accrual basis adds to what you have contributed. I agree that inflation may take some part, but if you look at the statement that is sent to you by your pension saving manager, you see that on an accrual basis, you have returns on the initial money. Maybe you have maybe 5 million savings at a point. You see some element where you have interest regime that the money has earned over a period of time. And there's even a leeway, even from the government, to borrow from those money, and there are interests that are paid. So over time, your money, in terms of what you put aside, like a normal savings, will earn some money for you. So the idea is to bring you to some level of comfort in retirement, and I think that law adequately caters for people in retirement. But then there's even a portion in the law that allow you to make an additional contribution beyond what your employer and what you contribute within the framework of what the company provides for you. You can do additional savings in that. And at the point of retirement, you can put your money into annuity when an insurance company, you have more money rather than the program one. So there are options that are okay. But then people need to have more education to understand the framework that is beneficial to them.
Let me ask, are there people who are exempted from pension scheme?
No, the law is both for public and private sector. I don't really see a provision that make an exemption, but I do know that there are companies that have a pool of funds that they manage on behalf of their employee that are like a pension scheme. So I think within that framework, I think the law support to a very large extent for the purpose of marketing. I won't mention some companies. There are some big companies that have a pool that they manage on their own. So when people exit, then they give it to a finance company to manage on behalf of that, of the company that does that. But the law cut across public and private sector.
Why I ask the question is there are people who have this mindset that, okay, why do I need to wait till when I'm retired? I need funds to do business now. Why can't I have access to it maybe after a year or more? Do you think there's need to have that provision under the pension scheme?
In my personal view, I don't think so. The law just try to protect people when they retire. The other means of saving. So in line with your retirement planning, whatever retirement goal, financial goal that you have, you can do other investment portfolios that meets your interest beyond the pension contributory scheme. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, you can make your financial goals based on your own personal decision, and you can make other investment options.
Okay, let's look at the management of the contributions being made. Are there provisions or guidelines that ensure the protection of these contributions? We've seen in the past where these monies were mismanaged, and at the time the workers became pensioners needed them. They weren't available. And very recently, we also saw the government borrow from the contributions, which the National Assembly is investigating or wanted to investigate. So, are there provisions that ensure the protection of this fund? Because if a person is contributing right now and they don't turn 50 or turn 60 until maybe another 20, 30 years, what is the guarantee?
Yeah, PENCOM is a regulatory agency in charge of contributing pension scheme. I think there are provisions in the law that protects the contributors. Then there are also provision in the law that allow people to borrow funds from those investments, and I'm sure so far those who have borrowed from those funds are able to return those funds, and those funds has helped to reflate the economy into other sectors where those monies are not immediately needed. So those provisions, those guarantees, the law adequately take care of that. I think my only challenge in terms of compliance is that some employers of labor are unable to contribute as at when due and pay those money into the savings account of their employees. And I do know PENCOM too has an oversight function where they call people out who have not been able to do those contributions to the savings accounts of employees.
But in spite of that, you still see some employees, defaulting when it comes to remittance of, pension funds. What can still be done to ensure that sense of responsibility that you collect the money, you have to remit to the PFAs, because the PFAs are in position to administer or keep these funds, and then before it gets to the central pool. So
I think it's a major challenge. Even the government itself has not been responsible in terms of meeting those obligations. So I think PENCOM that has the regulatory framework for oversight function must do their job to call people to order that have not made their contribution, and all the necessary sanction should be imposed on those who don't remit to the PFAs.
Does the employer get the right or the chance to choose the RSA that they want to do business with? For instance, let's say an employer was saving with a particular RSA and then they changed to a different organization. Is there a plan for, or is there provision for the employee rather to say, I want to stick with this, have all my contributions in one place, then have different accounts?
Yes, I think the law adequately make a provision that those who are contributing to the pool have the prerogative to choose the PFA that they want to use. So that's under the law. But again, for administrative expediency, some company, in terms of how they manage their contributions, may want people to use certain provider, but it's the prerogative of the contributor to choose whoever he wants to use. And you have the right under the law to move your funds to a PFA of your choice. The law make adequate provision, but I think for administrative reason, some company may want to say these are the people that we're using in terms of this, then kindly do that. So what you can do is that you can make some contribution. At some point, you can find a way to put your money back into your choice of PFA. I think the law is very clear on that.
Let's look at the PFAs. How will you assess their responsibility in, collection and the administration of those funds? You have different PFAs now. Depending on your choice, you can pick whichever you want to pitch your tent with. But how will you assess their level of competence and professionalism?
I think for many of them, they are doing very well. I think they are in line with the provisions of the law. There's no much infraction. I think the issue some of them have is that some of the employers, particularly state governments, that have not made their contributions, they have a challenge in terms of being able to pull those things through. But by and large, I think the PFAs so far from 2005 to date, they've been up to their responsibility in terms of the management of the fund. But then the challenge are the employer. Employers here means government and some private sector that are not able to remit those money. But if you have an interface with your PFA, if there are gaps, they give you a form and you're able to underline the months that your contributions are not coming. So you can place a demand either through yourself or through the provision of a legal person to be able to do a letter and address those issues to PENCOM to help resolve those issues.
Are there penalties or very strict penalties for defaulting employers?
There are, but I think the challenge is PENCOM. To what extent are they been able to put those sanctions through in terms of those defaulters? The provision in the law that says if you default, then there are certain sanctions that. So the regulator must do his job effectively so that there are no infraction into the inability of employers, particularly government in this case, not to remit the funds to the PFAs.
The Pension Act states that once you have up to about 15 employees, you're supposed to come up with a pension scheme. But I'm wondering, why do some employers shy away from, being part of the scheme? And then why do you think some still don't remit these funds? I'm wondering.
I think the challenge
what are the challenges?
The challenge here is we have a lot of informal sector in our country. The database of those who do businesses are not fully captured. So there are people, even beyond that 15, they even say, the reform says that even once you have an employee up to 3, you can make those contribution, can be part of the contribution pension. But the challenge is you have a greater number of business operators in the informal sector. Then in terms of the regulatory agency to be able to put them into their net is a major challenge. But I think with more education by PENCOM, then even the governing board of the Pension Commission cut across sectors. You have labor, you have all kinds of people within that board. And you even have even the Association of Retired Pensioners. So maybe with more clamor, more people will enroll into that scheme.
Okay, let's look at the contribution that is even made. 10% from the employer, 8% from the employee. Now, in some organizations, the employees do not get pay slip, which shows a breakdown of their entitlements, what they get. So how can they calculate and know, oh, this is actually the exact percentage that my employer is to contribute?
I'm sure that that's not a major challenge. Once you are an employee into a system, the calculations are very upfront. Then you have your account statement that is sent to you. Your contributing amount is itemized in your statement of account. But the structure or your offer or your employment offer, whatever is stated in terms of your earnings, the percentage in terms of what constitutes your basic and other emoluments are stated. So how they apply that, the percentage that is applied to the basic is what you must know from your HR, even if you don't have a pay slip. There's something that you advise at the end of the month that you have been paid your salary. And you have your offer letter where those things are spelled out. So you can manage that personally, you know what you earn. Then 2, your account statement specify what you earn. So you can just oppose that based on your earning and you get the calculations.
The reason I asked that because sometimes it's an aggregate payment and people just know in bulk this is their earning. But the breakdown as to even the basic, some do not even know.
Well, that would be the responsibility of the employee-employer relation. One will not be able to speak to that unless in specific term we have a letter of engagement, then we'll be able to speak to that issue. But I do know for sure that once you have your offer letter, your terms of engagement are spelled out there. And I do know that this money is expressed in terms of your basic earning.
For those who don't still see the need to be part of this scheme, what can be done to encourage them or motivate them or compel them to be part of this scheme?
I think there should be more employer-employee engagement in terms of how people want to plan their retirement. Two, pension, the PENCOM must constantly educate the public on the need to come into the pool so that they can guarantee the future of employees when they leave paid employment. So I think it's a holistic approach that should be adopted so that people can subscribe to the contribution pension scheme.
When we talk about pension, sometimes it's seen as if it's something for the old people or the elderly. And sometimes some young employees do not actually see the need why they should be part of a process like that. But looking at it, is there a time frame for an employee to be engaged with a particular organization before they get enlisted or get enrolled into the pension scheme?
I think there's a provision, not too sure now. Once you are in employment, within 4 months, when you are in that employment, there's a need for you to enroll into the contributory pension. So it's not necessarily for old people. It's just a plan that sustains your future when you retire. So people can do voluntary retirement. Once you're 50, you're still able. So it's not necessarily meant for old people. But the challenge and the picture we see in the media space, particularly from those people who were on the old scheme before 2004, you have gory sights of people sleeping around the premises of their employers and trying to do verification to collect their money. But then, the beauty of this reform is that your money is in your hands, so to speak. You have what you have contributed, you have your statement, then once you exit employment, from the age of 50, you approach your PFA and you can access your fund. Then whatever is left is programmed for you.
All right. Do you think there are needs for more reforms when it comes to the Pension Act and administration in Nigeria, given the present reality and then, you know, some of the peculiarities around the environment here?
Yes, I think laws are meant to be reviewed in line with current reality. And I took you through recent development in terms of pension. This new reform started in 2004. The law was reviewed in 2014 and there was a new review in 2022. So I think when there are new provisions, if there's a need, when the clamor comes to the National Assembly, some of the provisions will be reviewed in line with current economic reality and circumstances of people as they progress in society.
What other ways can people begin to plan for retirement? What other options are there in addition to the contribution scheme?
Thank you, Blessing. I think indeed, let's just put into perspective, retirement planning, simply put, is the financial goals that you set for yourself towards your retirement. So beyond the contributed pension, what kind of investment options that you want to use to secure your future when you retire? So you have other investment portfolios that are available to you. To what extent do you want to invest in real estate? To what extent do you want to invest on mutual funds? To what extent do you want to put your money into insurance, what you call annuity plan over a period of time? Stock market, even the money market, and the capital market extensively. So what are your goals? So you need to set a retirement plan, and that's what retirement planning is all about.
To pursue a retirement plan, it has to do with funding. I think it's always part of the challenge. We are aware of that of, pension, the funds will be released. But talking about making alternatives, one of the challenges has to do with the issue of finance. So how do you address that? What kind of initiative can be put in place to ensure that maybe at retirement you want to go into business, you are not looking for funds, there are funds you can take advantage of. What kind of arrangement can be made for a retiree to be able to maximize that?
I think one of the most important challenge that we have in this environment is that your retirement planning should actually start from the day you start your job. So you must set some financial goals for yourself. What kind of portfolio of investment do you want to achieve over a period of time? So this gives you a specific way you can plan your future. But then the challenge is that even if you don't have that kind of knowledge, there are people who are in that space who are specialists. So you can get a consultant to look at your earning vis-a-vis your retirement plan or your savings plan. So based on that, you're able to get advisory from financial advisors who understand the various market portfolio in terms of financial planning. They'll be able to advise you which sector that is most appropriate for setting short, long-term investment plan. So if you're able to address that, then even when you want to do a particular business, then you can make savings towards that business, and when they mature, then you can use them for that specific business. So the options are so many. You have endowment fund, you can do 5 years, you can do 10 years, depending on your age. And at the end of that financial cycle, then you can pull resources together. But what is key here is retirement. What will you want to do when you retire, when you are no longer really physically strong enough to do the hustles the way they put it on the street? Then you have those monies that you can access to. But essentially, it's a function of your earning, is a function of your financial goal, and is a function of your financial discipline. So those three ecosystem must be sustained for you to have a good retirement plan in place.
What are some of the common mistakes that individuals make towards retirement?
I think generally we have a very difficult regime of our ability to pay ourselves. Those who are in financial planning, personal finance in particular, there's a concept that they use, pay yourself. So what that means is that for every earning that you have, you should pay a minimum of 10% to yourself. And then what this means is that you should put that 10% aside in form of savings. Whatever portfolio you are interested in, it has to be your personal financial decision. So what is key is that people must learn the habit of paying themselves. That's number one. Number two, no money is too small to be saved. So we need to have this kind of financial discipline to always set something aside for the future. So those are some of the mistakes. Then people always feel that the money will always be there. So they don't plan for the rainy day. So if you look at even the function of money, we talk about transaction, precautionary, and all that. So you need to have that kind of mindset to always put something aside for the future. So the mistake is that we always have a feeling, particularly in this climate, it also mentioned earlier in the program, we're a bit fatalistic in our environment. Leave it for God. So let's find a way that God has given us the mind to learn how to manage our resources so that we can keep some little money aside for our future.
What do you make of this development where the Nigeria Union of Pensioners are asking for a living wage of about 40,000 naira for retirees, you know, like the actual minimum wage for those who are active in service? they are also calling for a review, you know, because for those who retired years back, the new minimum wage or the new scale might not cater for them. But now they're asking for a review of 40,000 naira as a living wage for retirees.
Well, that's a very difficult question for me. Tricky, Femi, but I will approach it this way. I do know for sure that there are companies that review their salaries. When those salaries are reviewed, then they dovetail into those who have left the system. I know some. No, for example, Central Bank of Nigeria, that's a public space. They review, once they review their salary, that review affects what they pay to their retirees, a percentage of increase. So when you ask for a blanket 40,000 minimum wage, that might be a difficult, a tall order for employers to look into. But I do know for sure that as soon as reviews are made for certain well-structured environment, that automatically impacts positively on what their retirees take.
All right. Is it just about financial planning when one is talking about retirement planning, or when an individual makes plans ahead of retirement? What about skill acquisition? What is the role of skill acquisition in retirement planning?
All right. Thank you very much. There are some structured environment companies that have schemes in place as a policy in the company where they prepare you for retirement. So you go through some form of skill acquisition training that will sustain you in retirement. But retirement planning is essentially beyond the financial aspect. Then you need to even plan your health, the kind of health scheme that you need to enjoy even in retirement. So it's key that companies must put in their policy statement to prepare people for retirement after people have put so much serving those companies. So when they retire, they'll be able to transit from the current job into a new job regime. So skill acquisition, very good. There are big companies that does that, because sometimes when people even leave paid employment, they find it difficult because they are not in the market space. And when they even make investment in certain area, within 2-3 years, those money go down the drain because they are not adequately prepared as entrepreneurs to face the challenge in the marketplace.
What do you think, can still be done? Because you discover a lot of people retired and then it's looking like the thing just happened like a breaking news, lack of preparation, and retirement is here. What do you think they can do to manage that phase? Because it could be lonely. You have a situation where people retire, they don't know what to do. So apart from skill acquisition, what other things can they do to manage that phase and to survive that phase?
No, I think preparation must be made for whatever profession or whatever vocation that you are in. Find something to do when you retire. You can make contributions. You can find a way to volunteer. You can belong to community associations where your contributions are needed. So that's will pull you in the direction that will make you to be active and become more beneficial to society. But people should have that mindset that one day, maybe after 30 years or 35 years, they go into retirement. So what do you do in retirement? So maybe you have a plan to be doing writing. Maybe you can do some coaching, spend some hours, then contribute to society. You can even go back to your company if you can want to spend 1 or 2 hours on a pro bono case if the company is not able to offer you money. So you become very active and you spend a longer time. Or you just have sufficient savings on the softer side of it, and you do a lot of holidays. You can, from your savings, do a lot of holidays and go to places of interest, and you can keep yourself happy with those holidays.
All right, talking about when people retire, what's your take on the current retirement age and the years of service? Some are of the opinion that even at that age, some persons are still very fit and can do more, particularly in the academia. Recently, the government is trying to have a plan where people in the health sector, when they retire, they can offer some form of service, maybe on a contract base, and what they'll be paid will be based on what they last earned before they retire. How do you see that?
No, I think it's okay for, in the academia, for example, the retirement age of professors have been increased to 70 years. Those who are in the administrative cadre of the university, that has been increased to 65 years. So that's okay. But then there are other schemes that are valuable in so many spaces in the employment value chain. So one, there are people who are at work and they are still very active. So when they leave active employment, they spend about 2-3 hours like consultants in the medical field. So you are not being paid based on the arrangement that you have with your employer. Some are being paid just the basic of what they were paid when they were in employment. So it's not cast in stone. Depends on the understanding and the configuration of the former employer and what they want from those who are in retirement. But I think people should not be retired until they are really tired. I remember the father of modern management, Peter Drucker, was still very active for over 90-something. He was still supervising the students. So people should not be retired until they are really, really tired. So, but different schemes can be worked out to see that they contribute meaningfully to society, and we can see tap on their varied experience so that we can transit with those knowledge.
How do we address this issue of late payment? You have pensions or gratuities being delayed, and then people have to wait for months, sometimes years. Can't we adopt the policy, pay as you go, pay as you retire?
I think that's essentially management issues, whether in the public sector or in the private sector. The issue of gratuities based on your company policy. You know, and the law, a minimum of 5 years, you'll be entitled to gratuity when you leave employment, some places 10 years. So those monies should be set aside and should not be used for other businesses, and you can put them into a pool of fund that other people can manage on behalf of the company. So when the time is due for people to access their gratuities, they don't have any problem. I think it's essentially a management issues. People should be more disciplined in the way they manage the resources of their employees, so that when they leave, they can be paid promptly their gratuities. I think it's not very healthy for a society where people have put so much, and at the end of the day, they don't have access to their money. But then, the various frameworks that are in place, the government must find a way to prosecute people that do not respect the laws that have been put in place to safeguard employees.
So what role can financial advisors play in assisting with retirement planning?
The problem here is education. You have a lot of people who offer financial advisory services, but people don't even know that they exist there. So I think people should be educated to visit somebody who is an expert in terms of retirement planning, in particular financial service advisory. People who provide service within that space should be consulted so that they can plan your resources. Then people must take advantage of various financial instruments that are in the money and capital market that exist currently. So they can put small money into mutual funds that become as small as 1,000 units in a mutual fund can become something later in the future.
Let's look at the pension contribution. The statutory is 18%, 10% from the employer, then 8% from the employee. Now, what of in a situation where an employee decides I want to increase the percentage, or an employer is being magnanimous enough to say, okay, can we find a way to increase it from 10%? Is it still possible? And then what kind of provision is available for an employer who feels I need an independent savings? Okay, let me increase from 8% to maybe 10 or 15 or more. Educate us on this.
Yeah, the law already made a provision for that. So if you want to, in addition to the mandatory, there's the actual word in the act, you can approach your PFA and just fill the form. Then you can make additional contribution. But what the law speaks to, or what the act speaks to, is that a minimum of 10%. That shows that you can do better than 10% if you have the financial muscle as an organization to do that. But then the challenge is that most employers are even finding it difficult to even remit their contributions currently. So if you are going to put an additional burden on the 10% that is the minimum threshold, they are not even able to pay that. It becomes another challenge. Let's see how this minimum is sustained over a period of time. And if there's a need to amend the law, then such provision will be made to the National Assembly, and that law will be adjusted accordingly. But individuals are at liberty within law to make a contribution. Even if you have retired and you find yourself working elsewhere, then once you are in the payroll of an organization, then you can start the process all over again to make some new contributions. So there's flexibility in terms of what happened there. And like I said earlier, the contributor is at liberty to do whatever he decides to do within the framework of the law.
Okay, let's look at customer service. What assistance are the PFAs meant to offer, or what assistance should they offer to the contributors in terms of their savings, and even offering advice that will help them make informed investment decisions?
I do know for sure that number one is that they must send a statement of account of contributors to them quarterly, and that is being done. Number two, some are providing additional education in terms of retirement planning. So they have sessions where they prepare contributors to what they can do in retirement. So they are interfacing in terms of education. They are equally providing advisory services on pro bono basis to the contributors. So they are doing very well in that regard. But then when you look at some of the operators, there are some who are really best in class in terms of practice. They are doing well in terms of education, in terms of the statement of accounts. So customer service for many of them is good, but then some need to scale up the way they attend to their contributors.